The second of these talks is about the Cappadocians and the Holy Trinity, which was the controversy that began in the early part of the 4th century. Just to let you know that a few years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, I wrote this book called The Three Wise Men from the East, the Cappadocian Fathers, and the Struggle for Orthodoxy. And in this book I trace this struggle for an orthodox, proper understanding of the Holy Trinity. The scriptures point to this idea of Holy Trinity, although they never actually use the term Trinity. For instance, in the Old Testament, in the Jewish scriptures in Deuteronomy, we read how God is one. So in Deuteronomy chapter 6, we are told this: "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is the God alone. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might. Keep these words that I am commanding to you today, and recite them to your children." So it begins by saying, this is called the Shema in Judaism, the Lord is our God, he is the Lord alone. In other words, there is one God. And yet through the Old Testament scriptures, there are hints that although God is one, he is also several. So for instance, we're told that the Spirit was brooding over the waters in creation. Or later in the book of Isaiah, Isaiah promises that someone new is going to come who will bring hope and salvation to his people. And we find this in Isaiah chapter 9. These famous words that we use at Christmas: "For a child has been born for us, a son given to us. Authority rests upon his shoulders, and he's named Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace." This is another member, if you like, of the Godhead, who the scriptures are saying will come one day and be born of a virgin. And so this goes on in the Old Testament. The Old Testament also speaks of the work of the Spirit, especially in Ezekiel chapter 37, where he breathes life into a valley of dry bones. Not only that, as we move into the New Testament, there's greater clarity about the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. For instance, St. Mark begins his gospel by saying it's the gospel of the Messiah, who is the Son of God. So a new term is coming in at the New Testament at that point. And St. John famously tells us in John chapter 1 that the Word who was eternal became flesh and dwelt among us, full of grace and truth. And then St. Paul, in many of his letters, takes up this idea of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit working together for the salvation of human beings. And we find that particularly in his writings in the epistles and in the Thessalonian church. Paul, in his epistles, talks not only about this three members of God, the Godhead, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, but also he speaks about their unity, that nevertheless, apart from being three, they are also one. And we see this in his letter to the Ephesians in chapter 4 and verses 4 to 6. So the scriptures point to this idea and fact of the Trinity. And it was this that was now being disputed in the 4th century by the church. Following the Council of Nicaea, it was not plain sailing. That is to say, there wasn't final resolution to this controversy. In fact, there are at least 4 different parties who are involved in expressing the Trinity as they thought it in different ways. Some of them were like Nicaea, but others were not. They would not say that the Son was of the same substance, homoousios, as the Father. So one group were the Nicenes, like Athanasius, of course, and the Cappadocians. Others said that the Son is unlike the Father, like a man called Eunomius, who was written about both by Gregory of Nyssa and Basil of Caesarea. Others said he was like the Father, not the same as the Father, but like the Son, like the Father. And they were the Eusebians, who followed someone called Eusebius of Nicomedia, one of the eastern principal bishoprics in present-day Turkey. And there were others who said that the Son was like in essence to the Father, which is very similar to the Nicene idea, but not quite the same. So do you see, there were these different parties who had these different views. Athanasius and the Cappadocians gradually put all their weight behind the definition that was found in the Council of Nicaea. What they said was that the Father was of the same substance as the Son, or rather the other way around. The Son was the same substance as the Father. And the Cappadocians, in their involvement with this doctrine, took it one stage further, if you like, saying not only were they of the same substance, but each member of the Holy Trinity had something distinctive to do, a distinctive role, a distinctive energy, although they were part of the whole, single, one God, of the same substance with him. Therefore, the Cappadocians talked about the knowable part of God and the unknowable part of God. The knowable part of God is what he'd revealed to us in the Son and in the Spirit, in their activity, in what they do, in what they have done. But also they stress the unknowable part of God, that the ousia, this common life between Father, Son and Holy Spirit, was in one sense beyond knowing. They were eternal, they were unimaginable, they were invisible, they were inscrutable. We couldn't know for sure what it was that was in God's mind. They together had this ousia, this common substance. In order to explore that, says the Cappadocians, we have to contemplate, we have to pray, we have to be still, we have to allow ourselves to be stretched in our understanding of God himself. So they said, yes, they are of one substance, but also they are three, actively distinct in what they're doing, but sharing this common life. And that is what the Cappadocians brought to this theology of the Holy Trinity, and also this idea of what is knowable about God and what is not knowable about him, which we must explore through contemplation and prayer and study. So that's the end of our second of the two lectures. We'll move now in the next one to look at Basil, his life and what he wrote and his contribution. Thank you very much.